So here's the point. Catholic masculinity, it's about stepping into the role of fathering or of a father. It's whether to your children or your community or to the world around you by becoming a warrior, a monk, and a leader. It's not just about going through the motions of faith, but it's about living like Christ, who served, sacrificed, and then stood firm against the chaos around him. We're called to stand guard, to carry our cross, and then to build these arks of safety for those we love, no matter the cost. I think a heroic man faces his wounds, tames, his inner chaos, like self-mastery, and we take responsibility for bringing order and strength to our corners of the world. This is the identity of the Catholic man. We're going to get into this. A cross-bearer, a watcher on the walls, and the light that pushes back the darkness. I've grappled with this idea for a long time. What is the identity of a Catholic man? Is there anything that make Catholic men different to other men? Something that gives us a unique identity? I don't know if I can encourage you with my life on how to be a heroic man, or even to be a good example of what is the identity of a Catholic man. So I'm going to point to my favorite stories. These are examples that inspire me, and maybe they'll inspire you too. So here's what I see. A Catholic man is not found in going to more confessions and more communion and more sacraments than the next person. It's not about doing more Catholicing than another. We've seen people do that. You've probably seen them in the local parish. It's a kind of LARPing, live action role playing. It's too much about me, right? Not enough about who you're actually trying to become. Our Catholic identity, all right, it does come from Christ. And he doesn't show up in words first. He shows up in doing first. So serving, taking charge, making a difference. These are what Christ reveals about his Father, about God. He models it for us. I think this is the deep genius of masculinity that we all grow into. It's the role of father. Now, because I'm a young dad, I've recently discovered the difference between what a father is and what a father does. Anyone can father kids, but few can father a family. I think it's a larger and it's a simpler idea. Once you get it, you might just love it because you'll understand yourself as a man and the specific genius that men bring the world. How does one define a father? I'm going to pick three words. It's a warrior, it's a monk, and it's a leader. I've got a cool oath that I found from this one. It's a fantasy series. There's a moment in the series where there's a group of men who self-exile themselves to the final frontier of civilization, all the way at the edge of the world, worst possible living circumstances, and they stand guard forever over the realms of men. It's a thankless job. They take an oath that no matter what comes at them, and no matter what is happening behind them, they will stand their ground and they will hold the line. They're crude, they're rough, they're heroic men. In this story, they actually don't even remember what it is they watch against, but it's the traditions that they uphold, it's the liturgies, and there's some personal experience there that shows them things can get bad really fast, really bad when they abandon their post. So they are taking vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. These are not just vows for religious. There are ways that we can take them too, as men, as fathers, or as young men. So here's the oath that they take. I love this oath. I'm going to write it a little bit, tweak it for us as Christian men. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. I pledge to love my wife, tend my responsibilities, and be a father to all children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. I shall live and die at my post. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. I am the fire that burns against the cold, the light against the light that brings the dawn, the horn that wakes the sleepers, the shield that guards the realms of men. I love that. I feel like that's something I was saying in my heart the day I stood at the altar and took my wife as bride. I get chills when I hear this and when I think about my role as a man, as being a young man and with my family. I think it's everything the man must be, everything a father must be. There's heroism there. There's self-sacrifice. There's no ego. There's no backing out. There's a massive mission that calls for your whole life. And it demands that you see the world in a whole new way. I like to think that priests don't just wear black, they take the black. And I believe every man does that too, in our own way, according to the kind of man that we are. Heroism doesn't just come with like big muscles and a single flavor. We don't need monocrop men. We don't need crowds. We need you. We need who you are in your own state, right? When I was young, before I was married, I thought it was cool for always talking about chivalry, arguing for Catholic culture like a crusader, sharing strong opinions, and definitely I was avoiding my doubts. Doubts were a weakness. I didn't realize, though, with all of that, I didn't realize how passive I was. I was not making good decisions. I was angry and disappointed with the men in my life. I was lashing out at my loved ones. I was oversensitive. I was defensive. I needed good examples of manhood. I told myself that I was a good person because I didn't do bad stuff. Well, that's not being good. That's weak. Not doing bad stuff doesn't make you good. Doing good, doing hard good, that's what makes you a heroic man. Some of us don't have good father figures. Some have lost them or we just don't trust them anymore. We all have wounds, all of us. Wounds from the enemy, from friendly fire, from our parents and guardians. Some of them are self-inflicted. I think the question every man has to answer is, what are you going to do with your wounds? As Christians, we are given a bloody and a heartbreaking example in the life of Christ. He takes his love for his friends and for humanity all the way through the cross. And while Christ is our model, we've usually heard the stories of him like so many times that they don't strike us the way that they used to. So I think that's when we need other stories to give us examples of heroism. So with some examples, let's talk about what is identity, what is Catholic, and what is a man. So first, what is identity? I think your life is an adventure to discover your identity. Your identity, I think it is something that you create, partly inherit, but you can also create it and you can change it like clothes or armor, trying to see which fits you best. I know that I change every 10 years. Your identity is your idea entity. So if you and I create it, we also have to be ready to let it go when it's no longer appropriate or is no longer serving its purpose, right? The Apocalypse of St. John states, God reveals our true identity to us once we finish running the race, and then he presents us with the white stone, a stone that bears our true name. That idea comes from ancient Greece, where Olympians would win races, or Roman gladiators, and they would gain this white gem of victory. The white gem, it also had a meaning for the Hebrews. It was a gem in the breastplate of the high priest. It was a stone that stood in the space of the name of God. So which means his identity is our identity. We are called to be like him. But life is a mess. So are we. St. Paul talks about war in his body that we have to train and master and understand. Billy Graham once invented a story. It was about two wolves within, a dark wolf of evil and a light wolf of good, and the one you feed is the one that wins. Well, I don't think that's a very good example, because if you ignore and starve parts of your identity because you don't understand it or you can't deal with it, it just gets larger and it gets darker and it becomes a bigger problem. Well, it's called your shadow. A better story, I think, is that we're made up of two men, a weak man who doesn't really want to honor God in his community, and then another who does. Well, that's the story of Cain and Abel. Why are our lives chaotic sometimes and everything going wrong inside? Because we're siding with Cain and allowing our darkness to overpower, to kill our heroic side. But then siding with the heroic side integrates your whole self, all the parts that you and I fear and all the parts that God created, because he said that we're very good. In stories, so I like to look at Aragorn, right? He refused his calling for decades because he's afraid that he'll fail, like his ancestors who failed catastrophically. But once he accepts his role, his identity, he takes the black, he takes on the role of a father who fights for his people. I think another cool example is Iron Man. We have Tony Stark, right? He begins as this kind of lovable narcissist, but he's pulled towards heroism. He uses his genius to answer this call and save lives. His sacrifice at the end of Infinity War, like, it just moves me to tears. It's this moving self-sacrifice of a father giving his life for his family and his friends, and following the call to serve and to save, he gains a new identity, hero. And also one of my absolute all-time favorites. It's The Last Samurai, where a war veteran, he's drinking himself blind because of his guilt and his wounds, and he finds himself captured by the enemy, and he discovers a new mission and a new identity that he loves. It's an identity of service, honor, and sacrifice. All of these men sacrificed, but they all loved who they were, who they are. They loved how life and responsibility changed them, and their acceptance of risk and resilience taught them to be men. All three have children, women, and other men in their lives, and all three learned how to serve, support, and save them. We love them because we know who they are, not at first, but in the end. These characters, we love them. They discovered their true identity, to not just be a father, but to father, to do what fathering means. So what is Catholic? Catholics, or Christians in general, they're called to follow a specific Lord Commander, Christ himself. We're called to be him, to have that come to life, have him come to life inside of us. Most examples, I think, of fatherhood in our life are a bit like Zeus, right, from Greek mythology. Distant, demanding, hard, uncaring. With Jesus, he washes our feet, and he binds our wounds, and he cooks fish for his friends, and he calms storms. We have religious brothers and sisters who take the black in a visual way, and as, promising to become spiritual specialists, and they bring us into communion with Christ through their service or through the sacraments. But we normal young men and fathers, we bring our world into contact with Christ through ourselves, through living, through business, showing up, saving the wounded, serving the fallen. We're the normal frontier of faith with the world. It's not the priests and the nuns. It's you and me. And so the examples of healthy, heroic masculinity, I think, has many faces. They're not all Navy SEALs or saints in stained glass. They're very real. They're very human. I like to think of the fantastic masculinity of Newt Scamander from Fantastic Beasts, right? He's tender, he's quiet, he's introverted, and he's heroic. His reverence is for the poor and the suffering. And for his life, he focuses on these ignored and underserved magical animals. It's a fantastical story, but the character is the point here. He brings the safety of a father to his world and his friends. It's like Christ tending the poor and the suffering. If you haven't seen it in No Time to Die, perhaps, or maybe Train to Busan, the main heroes, they are men who would prefer to be on mission. They would prefer to be successful in business, but then they allow the presence of a child or the love of their wives to change them from the inside out. They understand that their quests must end in a heroic answer. So they act like a good father. A good father learns to make these little sacrifices, to die to self for the good of his charges. They grow their hearts like Christ at Calvary. A third favorite example, I think, is Jethro from Prince of Egypt. He's this huge, cheery bear of a man. He makes his tribe feel safe and protected. He's open and he is patient. He's cheery and he is welcoming. He doesn't obsess over the flaws and details of the lives around him, but he challenges you to look at your life through heaven's eyes. He leads the dance, and he creates a haven where others can thrive, like Christ at Cana. The cross is our symbol. I like to teach my child to think heavens to earth, friend to friend. It's the vertical line of all creation, and it's my responsibility to my friends on either side of me, and then the center point where they intersect, that's me. I'm called to hold it all there. And what is at that juncture, right? That juncture is, it's a heart, right? And it's cowed from pain and fear. Or is it going to be bold and ready to share life, to defend the weak and the hurt, and to push back against pain, the pain and the savagery of the world, and then to say to the world, you move. So now let's talk about briefly, what is a man? I think that we grate at caricatures of men who are strong, silent, and emotionless. I mean, at first they seem pretty cool, but and a man does have many sides. Some of them are strong and silent and sensitive, but there's some of us who are brash and some who are quiet. Some of us who are Olympians, some who are boxers, some are better bakers, some are nurses, and some are these brilliant self-controlled CEOs, and some of these are heroes with incredible amounts of silent empathy. All of that is needed. But deep down, I do believe that we all need a cause to fight for, because we do battle with ourselves every single day. Our inner Cain and Abel does not rest, and Cain is usually bulkier. Without a beautiful dream to right the unrightable wrongs, an impossible dream like this, right? We just don't do anything with our lives. We're all called to father, some to be a father, but I think that all must father, meaning we bring stability, order, care, and confidence to others. We help bring order out of chaos. We calm in storms. We help with decisions when things get stuck. I think that these are the basic rules of manhood or the divine masculine. That these are things that we all have to learn. I think that a lot of us, our bodies are shaped for resilience and for action. It's like it's a charism that many of us are born with. That also means that our embraces then are bigger. If we are bigger, it means we can hold more in our arms. I think that even young men, we need something to fight for, to protect. Single men, we're not, let off the hook. Find a battle, right? Find out what kind of monster you are, and then master that, tame it, train that beast, take on a task that grows you, join a team that makes you better. So what is the role of men, right? Let's look at mythology. I love King Arthur and Robin Hood. They're my favorite examples of mythic men. Arthur brings together a people, and he's not even the best warrior, right? He leads by inspiration, and he builds Camelot. In First Night, Lancelot is selfish and repressed. Well, a surprising love for Guinevere is what brings him to Camelot, where Arthur becomes the father figure who lovingly breaks into his heart and calls him to heroism. If we look at Robin Hood, actually, he only accepts men into his band if they can defeat him in combat in the original stories. So that way, everybody's better than him. I mean, that's a hilarious position to be a leader in. Completely different to Assyrian kings, where I think it's like once a year, a king maintained his kinghood or kingship status by going out and killing a lion with his bare hands or with a weapon. Very rare thing to do for men. If you did that, you earned serious, cultural chops. Well, not with Robin Hood. Everybody who joins his band has to defeat him in battle first. Here's why I think that's important. This way he knows that everybody is there because they believe him, not because they fear him. They're there because they trust and love him, not just because he can crush them. There's an example from Shia LaBeouf, actually. He hung out with John Bernthal. It was an incredible, raw and real discussion about addiction, ego, and manhood. I'm not sure exactly what I think about Shia completely, and he's still, very well on his journey, but he said one thing that I thought was very interesting. He asked what masculinity means for him, and he answered, a stable mountain. It brings definition to a landscape, it supports what happens on it, and it creates shelter and comfort. I think we need these kinds of men. Whether you're packed with energy or you're a silent kind, I think that imagery of a mountain is powerful. Can your friends and family trust you? Are you there for your community? Are you stable no matter the weather? I'm not saying I am, but these are the things that we aim for, right? Men, we step in and we step up. We take responsibility. No one needs to ask us to. We show up. We shore up. We take a cross, right? And we just start carrying. We make the world better one day at a time, one conversation at a time. We're there for every friend, building brotherhood, making business better, making streets safer, making parishes stronger, making our families freer. This is why I think men build arks. When the world is falling apart, we hold it together. When our world, our loved one's world, like our wife or our child is collapsing, right? We hold them. We can't always fix it, but we can be there. We can carry them. We build arks to create a space of freedom and safety for our family or for our tribe. We men, we love what we're responsible for, but we have to be free to be responsible. Otherwise, it's just a job. So I think for every young man, father and husband today, you may not wear the black of a priest, but you will take the black. You must be able to wear the armor of a soldier and the robes of a monk in our heart. And we've got to be both. It can't just be monks. It's got to be the knight as well. Every day will be a proving ground. It's going to be our training arena to grind away at the edges of ego and anger, to catch yourself in the corner of your eye, to be moved by who and what we love and not just by what we hate. So I think that as Catholics, we're gifted a confidence to regularly ask for Christ, who's ready and waiting inside of you every minute to well up and move you. I think we men already have this in us. We don't have to go get it. It's there already. It's an unlit bonfire. We need to unlearn the silly messages and the needy self ideas to come home to ourselves, to Christ in our inner sanctum, to pray and persist and pick up our cross for one more day. Some men may not find a community or a father figure, so ask and you shall receive, right? Knock and you shall find. You can't outsource this stuff. We have to do it ourselves. We've been shown the plan and the results, and now we do something. When the student is ready, then the teacher appears. Ask, knock, pray, and then look at your day and think, what is one thing that I could do better? So 3 practical tips that I like. I'll go with Jordan Peterson on this one. Start by cleaning your room. No one will give you more trust if you haven't mastered your own room. And that can be literal. It can be a metaphor for your environment, your own life, right? Number 2 is just make a decision. Get used to making decisions. Don't wait. Don't be perfect. Don't be an insensitive jackass as well. Evaluate if this is a good time to suggest a plan or to make a decision. And if no one is acting, well, then take charge. Find that inner hero. And this will teach you, I think, the beginning of a power that men must wield, the power to tame your inner monster. And then lastly, pray to Christ and to Mary for help to see. And you must pray every day, asking the Father of Lights to send gifts. And I think while you're waiting for things to become manifest and things to become clear, find a project or a problem in your home or your community and then volunteer. Fix it. Show up. Help your friend. Don't push or impose. It's not about being noticed. It's about building resilience so that someday when you need 20 seconds of insane courage, just 20 seconds that'll change your life or someone else's world, you're ready. I think the identity of a Catholic man is a cross bearer who shows up quietly and serves, just like Christ. So I want to wrap by repeating that oath from the beginning. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. I pledge to love my wife, if I have one, to tend my responsibilities and to be a father to all children. I shall I shall seek no crowns and I shall win no glory. I shall live and die at my post. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. I'm the fire that burns against the cold, the light that brings the dawn, the horn that wakes the sleepers, the shield that guards the realms of men.